Hello there. This is yet another call from the Auto Hub Show. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. And this is the fourth episode of our new interview show as we prepare to celebrate our fifth anniversary of the show. Fourth anniversary going into the fifth season, correction. And I have a wonderful guest on this morning. It's Candace, correct?
That's right.
Candace, correct. So I wanted to make sure, obviously, I have the name right, but also wanted to, for Candace to talk a little bit about what she does, since the show is never about me, it's about our guests, as always. That's true with the interview show. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your story in the automotive industry, and then we'll go from there.
Got it. Okay. Well, my name is Candace Lowe. I am in my 27th year in the car business. I spent 12 years selling cars, retail lease, BDC fleet, mostly Ford, BMW, Nissan, some other brands here and there, but those are the ones I spent most of my time with. And then the last 12 years I spent in the consulting space, and then I guess the tail end of that, now I'm in the paid vendor space and handling multiple clients, just trying to figure out to do what's best for them on their paid digital efforts.
Fantastic. Kind of echoes me a little bit. I've been in the business over 25 years, maybe a little longer. 10 years retail, mostly for Honda stores. I have a family history in the business as well. Worked on the vendor side in various areas for the last 15 years. And of course, I've done a show for the last 4 years. So, I've been doing that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's always been about the automotive industry and helping dealers, sometimes kicking and screaming, drag them to getting better. And that's actually the theme of the show, which is getting better every single show. So I guess my question, since we're rolling into a new month, rolling into a new year, and of course, rolling into a new series of episodes as I'm preparing for my show on Monday, which will be the anniversary show, but also the AI show, which is coming up, AIO show, which is coming up later this month as I prepare for SodaCon. What's your theory on dealers and software? Like, what's your advice to vendors of various types who are trying to get dealers to use software?
Hey, if you miss us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.
I think if you're trying to sell a dealer a solution vis-a-vis software, I really think you need to understand their business, their geography a little bit better. Going in blind to a dealership and just saying, hey, we have this wonderful, great, shiny new toy, and you should do it. You should absolutely pay for it. You're not really speaking their language. So the people who own dealerships, who are GMs of dealerships, 9 times out of 10, they literally, by the skin of their teeth, have come up through the ranks, worked their way up to get into that position, kicking and screaming all the way, right? They've learned school of hard knocks, however you want to put it. You have to sell them why it's important for their brand, for their store, for their community, for their dealership in that geography. And if you can solve that problem that they have, that the website's not driving enough traffic, the paid marketing vendor they're using isn't creating enough soft conversions. If you can actually get down to that hurt, and you're not going to do that in one, visit to the store. You're going to have to visit and listen to them and hear them tell what their hurts are. You actually spend some time with them. So if you can sell in a way that solves the hurt, as opposed to just going in blindly, generic template, here's my sales pitch, buy it or leave it. If you can go in like that with that attitude and solve the hurt for them, not only do you get the customer and the account, you'll probably keep them a lot longer. The loyalty tends to go up when you're solving a hurt for them that maybe they didn't even know they had the hurt. Sometimes it works like that too. Oh, I have a solution for that problem, but they didn't even know it was a problem until you came in and let them know there's an easier way to do this. So that's why we got CRF, right?
You mean the Vegas call to actions they don't convert by themselves? Is that what you mean?
No, and the 3x5 card and the tickler file, that doesn't do a whole lot for sorting out and following up with customers anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about customer experience on the show, and especially around technology, but also when it comes to retention. And of course, the push lately has been staffing and digital retail. Obviously, being pushed along by Amazon and others. But I mean, I guess the bigger question, this is something that always, comes to a head for me when you see changes. And these happened obviously early on in the show with the pandemic, but also have changed again now with changes in the economy with interest rates and inventory again. I guess that the big focus for me has always been, it's always about the customer and the customer experience, whether that be virtual, whether that be in store. What's your advice on dealers who are saying, hey, I want to create a better customer experience, or OEM saying, hey, I want to push the dealer to do that, but I can't find the right staff, or I can't seem to fix my process, or this technology is just too difficult and I want to go backwards. I mean, I hear that a lot lately, where we're going back to the new normal, whether it was with Steam Greenfield or others. But I think really the new normal has changed a little bit. I mean, I got actually a report from one of our sponsors, CDK, on insights the other day, and I was going through that. It was really interesting just looking at the numbers around generations and around customer experience and around digital tech and around EVs specifically was one of the topics. But I guess my question is, with so much going on and dealers juggling so many things these days, what's your advice to them as to what technologies that they should use, but more importantly, how could they, get their staff to use it at the highest level? CDK obviously is a CRM provider, but in addition to CRMs, they're juggling a lot of different things. I see it all the time. I got 6 tabs open. I got to do double entry. I got to do all this stuff. I mean, what is your advice there?
So from the dealership level, my advice is go back to the basics on training. So I remember walking into stores and seeing the 12 steps to the sale up in the sales office, and I don't see that anymore. So I think going back to basics for a lot of people, because it really starts when the customer first contacts your dealership. It used to start, it was when they walked in the door and you shook their hand, that's the first interaction. Now it's when they call, when they email, when they chat, when they interact with your store digitally, that's the first interaction. So really the training has to be there, not just on the 12 steps, but there has to be steps for that, before they even walk in the door. For the chat, there has to be a process laid out for that. How are you going to address questions? For the phone calls, I don't see phone training anymore anywhere. So I see people outsourcing to offsite BDCs, and that's great if that works for you. But you have to train the people in the store. There's some areas that I covered when I was a consultant in Oklahoma and West Texas. That was a complaint a lot of the time is, I'm having trouble, keeping people trained or retaining people or finding people even. But really, you have to just double down on consistent training. It has to become a daily part of what you're doing for your sales teams. It just has to. And then as far as finding the customers, I'm not a big fan of third-party lead sources, because I think car dealerships, they're not like on wheels. You can't pick them up and wheel them to the next village and set them down and sell our snake oil, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty much locked into the community. So if you've been in a community for, say 10, 15 years, and you're not capitalizing on your DMS, your first party data, and treating those people right from like day one, it's going to be really hard to get them back into your store. So treating them right from day one, from the first interaction, phone, text, email, chat, whatever it is, carrier pigeon,
Yeah.
treating them right with the right process. Daily training for the salespeople on how to handle every situation. And I'm not talking standing in the front of a room and barking at them what the process is. Actually role-playing a walk around, actually role-playing a phone call, and playing bad phone calls in a meeting and good phone calls in a meeting so people can hear the difference between them. Getting all the way into the weeds with those types of trainings really is what's going to push it to the next level. And then making sure that service drive customer who bought a car 3 years ago, but we somehow got them magically back in the front door, making sure we give enough love to that customer in the service drive that they want to come back in, and that results in a car purchase down the line. So you can't win by just knowing how to putt when you play golf. You have to play a long game too. So there's not enough people who know how to play the long game anymore. It seems like we're all great putters recently, and we just forgot how to do the long game.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I was looking at the data and they broke out generations. So they had the greatest generation, baby boomers, my generation, Generation X, older millennials, younger millennials, and Gen Z, and I guess Generation Alpha's after that. But I thought it was kind of interesting how they broke out millennials in 2 segments. But the other thing that was really interesting, because I'm always interested in that male, female, other category, I guess these days, was just I thought that the percentage of people buying cars that happen to be female, to pick a gender, wasn't as high as I expected. Because when I sold cars, it was a much higher number, but maybe that because it may be a couple buying a car potentially. But the thing that was really interesting is I looked at a Cox study. I did many shows on digital retail recently, but there seems to be a new resurgence into that area. Was that I think it was the number, and I mean, obviously I'm happy to share the study, but I think the number was something like 27% of consumers would like to complete the entire purchase online. That number being a little bit lighter in, like a mixed bag. But I think the disconnect isn't the digital retail tools or even the website platform. It's, like how when that person finally does show up to pick up that car, or the car is delivered to them, depending on how it works at the dealership, there's that having to redo things, or that time process, which is another thing that was really interesting in the study. Was there's a direct correlation between CSI that we all love in the car business and the time it takes to buy a vehicle. And I know Benstock and others talk about frictionless experience, but when you look at the fact that cars are probably more expensive than they've ever been, not only is it a big purchase, the second biggest in someone's life, it's not only about customer experience, it's about time, because people are having to spend more time working to pay for things today. So I think it's a combination of vortex of technology, training, process, and also customer experience, but more importantly, how long does it take? And that doesn't just mean in the sales side of the house. I think in the service side of the house, that's also a big factor. I did some training years ago in the service side. And the thing that really shocked me, I guess, as I implemented tablets in the service drive, for example, and other software, was how long oil changes took on average, or how long it took for customers to hear back from a service department on their vehicle because of the sheer volume there. But I guess the question is, as you've navigated all these different sides of the business, retail, training, consulting, software, being a vendor, working with different vendors potentially, because that's always part of it, what do you feel the future is as we see AI and really a streamlining of all these tools and a reduction of staff, or staff having to juggle more balls? What do you see the future there in retail? Like, what's your feeling?
So, I mean, you kind of hit it with the time factor. So that's the whole reason behind all the software we pick up, is the value of time. Sometimes it's our time, most of the time it's the customer's time.
Right.
So the adoption of the digital retailing tool, that's definitely grown, because I remember, digital retailing tools, they aren't new. They're certainly not new to our business, but it's the adoption of them that's actually been a slow rollout. And I know, it doesn't matter how much money you make. We all have the same number of hours a day. We all have the same amount of time in each actual day to spend on. So respecting the customer's time in that aspect of it, I think that's where the AI tool can actually come into play when applied properly with the digital retailing tool, and advancing someone maybe through the steps that they can do before they walk in the front door, or before the car shows up in their front lawn or their driveway. So I think that's where, to really dig into the benefit of AI, I really think that's where we're going to have to pivot to, is utilizing it to make the digital retailing tool process a little less clunky. Because it is clunky now. And like you said, the process falls apart when they walk in the front door. It's like they never took 2 hours to fill out all that stuff at home in the digital retailing tool. When you start them over with, well, what are you looking for today? Wait a minute, what? I spent 2 hours last night telling you what I'm looking for. What are you talking about? So making sure that actually is seamless, and you can utilize AI for that. So I don't know why there's not someone who hasn't done this yet, but utilizing the digital retailing tool with an AI like tour that walks you through and says, okay, now you need to do the trade-in. You don't want to do that? Okay, we can do this piece. Would you like to do this piece? So I think that would be a really good, just kind of a shove into the whole AI digital retailing portion, and maximizing, someone's time. Because how many times do you have customers who sit there and they'll be like, well, wait a minute, how do I go to the next thing? I don't want to put that in. And they're stuck, or they stop, or they call the store. So I think that would be a good kind of overlay into a digital retailing with AI, and just handhold someone to walk through that. Because I guarantee once people walk through it and they realize how much time they save, they're probably not going to buy a car a different way after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started down that road, and we're kind of at a fork in the road now, where it's like, okay, we can't really go back, can't put the genie back in the box, but at the same time, we need to make changes. And I always use a couple brands as an example. If you have some time in your hands and you want to see how you can break a website for a car brand, definitely take a look at the Ferrari site and try and build a car, because there's so many options that eventually the computer just crashes because there's too much. But when
a Porsche 911, and that can be the same thing. You can pick the red color and stuff, you know. I mean, there's the 90%. There's only so much you can load in there.
Yeah, yes and no, but I think Porsche was smart in terms of that they have basically forced the dealership experience and the OEM experience to be in lockstep, which I think you're going to see with Genesis and Hyundai and other brands, especially as Amazon works with them. But, you know, that's another thing that comes up where, you know, if I go to a McDonald's to pick a restaurant, I don't get a Big Mac differently at different restaurants. It's pretty consistent. So I think that's part of it, but also what does the customer want? And I think what's happened when I sold cars that had, you know, the steps to the sale, for example, I think what's happened now is it's like, okay, what step did you want to do next? As we look at things around possibly credit challenge people, or change in models, or change in customer behavior, even change in how people buy vehicles. I mean, I worked for Nissan Infiniti for a while, and I was talking to a gentleman I used to work with, and his big challenge, since he works on the finance side of the business and his job is to help dealers sell products, is now the way people are buying cars has changed because of affordability. So they're doing a lot more short-term leases. So that makes it a challenge for that dealer to make money in the back end, for example, and for him to train him how to do that. But I would argue the same is true when you look at how people service vehicles, specifically on the EV side, but also even on the gas side, with a move towards, you know, hybrids or gas or electric. You know, they're selling prepaid maintenance. They're building that into a lease. The leases are shorter term. Customers that are younger have less dollars to spend. So that they're really looking at this. But more importantly, what's the best for the brand, the dealer, and the customer moving forward? Because I don't think younger generations look at a car purchase the same way I would. And I think that was why it was kind of interesting when it was like older millennials, younger millennials. You know, just because I thought that was an interesting split. You can order it right from CDK. It's called Insights. So this is the book. If you want a copy, I'm sure get Troy to send you one. He's one of the sponsors of the show, to be transparent, but it has a lot of really good data. And there's even some stuff on F&I, which I thought was interesting, being that I used to do that. But and I guess the other thing is, you know, attracting people to the business. When I got in the business 25 years ago, it was challenging to attract people to work in the business. And I know gender-wise, we've had many shows on this, because not only is it challenging to attract women to the business, it's more challenging to retain women than men. I guess my question would be, as a woman in the car business, you know, what advice would you give to young women who maybe, or older women who say are looking for a change and want to look at the car business, whether it be on the vendor side or the retail side? I mean, what would your advice be?
Have a plan. Have a plan of where you want to go.
Right.
And talk to a lot of different people. Attend industry events. There's a lot of, I'm actually going to Women in Automotive in a couple of weeks. There's lots of women-focused events like that. But find women in roles that look like they might be interesting to you, and see what their path was to get there. And then don't let anybody detract you from that path. So if you have, I mean, I have my goal in front of me every day, and I read it every day when I walk in my home office.
Yeah.
So just have that goal, have that path, put yourself in front of women in roles that you would like to be in, and just ask what their path was and how they got there. Generally speaking, probably 99% of the women I talk to in the car business, like, none of us dreamed we wanted to be on this as a little girl, but something actually drew us into it as we got further along in our careers. And for me personally, I love training. I love consulting. I love finding solutions and moving dealerships business forward. That's a passion of mine. So, and I've been told many times, why would you want to be in this business? And I've been in dealerships where I've been the only woman selling cars. So I just had a drive to stay with it. I had a drive that I wanted to achieve something more and get further. So that would be my advice: is find some mentors early on and really figure out if, okay, I'm going to talk to Candace. Okay, Candace isn't the path I want to take. Okay, I'm going to talk to Josephine. Josephine is the path I want to take. Like, talk to different women. Don't talk to one and think that's it. There's plenty of women out there, and we're all very happy to share our stories. I don't know a single woman that isn't lifting other women up in automotive behind them to actually go further than they did. All of us are very happy to, use our broad shoulders to propel the next women up further along than we have been.
That's great advice. Yeah, I mean, we've done a number of shows, and even way early on in the show we did, I think one of the first, I think it was the first show Women in Auto, and people are like, "Yeah, it's a bad idea." So it's kind of interesting. But having been to a lot of conferences now, both in Canada and the U.S. at scale over the last number of years, I always thought it was kind of interesting, just sort of the takes in those rooms when I was like one of the few men in the room. So it was kind of interesting, but more importantly, I think the onus is also on the men to get involved and get interested, because you have to represent the buying populace in the dealership that you own or operate. Because even if that number is 56% women, I don't know, that's what they're saying, but I'd say it's somewhere between 50 and 80%. Realistically, you need to have those voices in the room and those voices interacting with your customers. And I actually set up BDCs.
Because I was the only woman there. Like, a lot of times I would have customers call and be like, "Hey, if you don't have a female salesperson, I'm hanging up right now." Or people would walk past when one particularly kind of cutthroat dealership I worked at, there's 40 salespeople, and these customers would walk past the sea of male salespeople, and I'd be like walking to another point or something. Like, no, man, can you help us? Sure.
Yeah.
So I think you have it. That's hit right on there. The dealerships right now, the owners need to really embrace female salespersons, female sales managers, female sales staff at the dealerships, not just in the business office, not just behind the receptionist desk, not just in the finance office, but actually your first customer facing. You need to have an equitable amount of women and men in that position, because I mean, I don't care if you're the Shah of Iran or you're not. You're the complete opposite of that. If you're married, you're getting your wife's input on when you buy a vehicle.
Right.
When you buy anything over like $300, $500, you're getting your wife's input. So it would just stand to reason that would be the way your diversity in your dealership should break out as well.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of interviewing a lady who runs a Mercedes-Benz dealer in Moncton, the big town of Moncton, and she was a former hairdresser, which was kind of an interesting story. But she started that, and then you can check out the interview, obviously, on the interview series. But she started out as a receptionist in a car dealer, and she was talking about her journey because she's very good at branding herself and I guess the lifestyle of Mercedes, in my opinion, specifically on LinkedIn. I'm sure she brands it elsewhere. But I was talking to her about sort of her journey and sort of how she moved from a completely different industry, basically, that was customer focused. But it was really interesting, sort of her take on it. So that was really all the questions I had. I mean, did you have any final thoughts or anything for me? I mean, I try to make it short and sweet.
I think that the dealerships, at least the dealerships that I'm talking to, they're seeing that there's a need for more training, more consistency. There's a need for speeding up the customer experience, no matter where they are in the house. They see it, but they don't know how to change it. Like, they don't know how to evolve. And the really, forward-thinking ones are actively seeking solutions to evolve that. So if you're not either thinking you have a problem or trying to evolve, you're going to get left in the dust. So that would be my final thought: is start that process today if you haven't already.
And how can you help dealers sort of accomplish those goals, like in what you do in your day job?
So with the clients that I have right now, the dealerships that I service right now, it would be very easy to kind of be like, well, your ads is performing this way, your social's performing this way. Good. Okay, let's go. But I go a little bit deeper, and I make sure, like, I do a website check. That's not necessarily a requirement of my job, but
right.
I'm sending traffic to your website. I want to make sure that customer experience when they land on the website is the same, as they got served up a beautiful ad. Now I want them to have the same experience on the website.
Right.
And then, when we go into the store, we call it the store. So I'll actually review a website. I'll go peek at some social media pages, and I'll offer them a little advice, because really it's an whole ecosystem. The physical brick and mortar dealership and the digital dealership, it's a whole ecosystem that has to work together. And if anything's is there any friction? If there's something that's not completely smooth in that, I mean, that'll break the whole thing down. It doesn't matter what paid vendor you have and how great your social media content is or how wonderful your Google Built My Business listing is. If it's broken, it's broken. So that's my advice is if you're in this space that I'm in, if you're servicing a client's dealer facing, take the extra step because dealers really appreciate that. They're constantly having, people looking at their sites saying it's, this is broken, that's broken. Give them solutions. Here's what I see, and here's how I think you could fix it. Here's who you need to call to fix it. So in my organization, I'm very fortunate that we have so many people that are subject matter experts that I have just a huge repository of people that I can ask those questions to. What would increase his SEO value on this website? What would help his social media presence? Things like that. That if I don't know, then I have a great actual library of people to ask those questions to. So.
Well, thanks very much for that. And thanks very much for the time today. I really appreciate it. And of course, I'll have details in the description below. So you can reach out to Candace if you have questions. And have yourself a great day, afternoon, morning, whenever you're watching or listening to this. And thanks for watching the Auto Hub Show. You can subscribe at any point. And if you are interested in a nice hat like this, we have some available in multiple colors. And of course, Candace, you'll be getting one from me when I have a chance to set it out. All right. You have yourself a great day. Thanks again.
Hey, if you missed us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.